In this video, we examine 3 climbers who became Everest's most infamous landmarks. Their bodies served as waypoints for future expeditions, marking where supplemental oxygen couldn't save them. What started as dreams of conquest would make them eternal guardians of the peak. It was May 10th, 1996, and the northeast ridge of Mount Everest stretched endlessly above 27,900 feet, where atmospheric pressure drops to 1/3 of sea level values and oxygen starvation begins affecting brain function within minutes. A small limestone cave, carved by centuries of wind and weather, offered the only shelter from howling winds that could strip exposed flesh from bone in less than 10 minutes of direct exposure. Tsewang Paljor was 28, a constable with the Indo-Tibetan Border Police from Sakti village in Ladakh, India, where high-altitude living had conditioned his body for extreme elevation, but not for the death zone above 26,000 feet. Known throughout his unit for unwavering determination and exceptional physical conditioning developed through years of high-altitude border patrols along disputed territories, Paljor had trained extensively for extreme weather conditions and technical climbing scenarios. He served as part of India's ambitious first expedition, attempting Everest via the treacherous Northeast Ridge route, a technically demanding approach that had claimed numerous lives due to its exposure and limited escape routes. His goals centered on planting the Indian flag on Everest's 29,032-foot summit, representing national pride and personal achievement that had motivated 2 years of intensive preparation. His mountaineering experience included solid technical skills developed during border patrol operations, but remained limited for 8,000-meter peaks, where physiological demands exceed human survival capabilities without supplemental oxygen and perfect timing. Mount Everest's northeast ridge presents climbers with exposed rock faces and knife-edge ridges at elevations exceeding 27,900 feet, where the margin for error approaches zero and weather conditions can change from survivable to fatal within hours. The terrain consists of loose rock, verglas ice, and technical climbing sections that require precise footwork and balance while wearing bulky high-altitude gear and breathing supplemental oxygen through restrictive face masks. Weather conditions on May 10th had started favorably with clear skies and moderate winds, but meteorological reports indicated a significant storm system approaching from the west with sustained winds exceeding 60 miles per hour and temperatures dropping to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit with dangerous wind chill factors. Visibility in the death zone can drop to mere feet during storm conditions, making navigation impossible even for experienced climbers familiar with the route. At 27,900 feet elevation, oxygen levels drop to 33% of sea level values, causing rapid cognitive decline, physical exhaustion, and hypothermia that can prove fatal within hours of exposure to extreme conditions. The Indo-Tibetan Border Police expedition had received multiple warnings about weather deterioration and the critical importance of adhering to the universally accepted 2 p.m. turnaround time for summit attempts, regardless of proximity to the peak. Weather reports issued by expedition meteorologists specifically warned of an incoming storm system that would bring life-threatening conditions to the upper mountain by late afternoon, with wind speeds potentially exceeding 70 miles per hour and temperatures dropping below survivable limits. Radio communications from base camp repeatedly emphasized the narrow weather window available for safe summit attempts, while other expedition teams had already begun adjusting their schedules based on the deteriorating forecast. Paljor's teammates, recognizing the increasing danger signs, made the decision to turn back during the morning hours when weather conditions began showing clear signs of rapid deterioration. Despite these warnings and the retreat of his teammates, Paljor chose to continue toward the summit with 2 other team members, believing that their proximity to the goal justified the increased risk. The decision violated established mountaineering protocols designed to prevent exactly the type of emergency that would soon develop, as the 2 p.m. turnaround rule exists specifically to ensure adequate time for safe descent before weather conditions deteriorate beyond survivable limits. Clear signs of the approaching storm system were visible throughout the morning, including increasing wind speeds, dropping temperatures, and the characteristic cloud formations that indicate rapidly approaching severe weather in the Himalayan region. The storm system hit with devastating force at 8,500 meters during the team's descent from the summit, transforming clear visibility into complete whiteout conditions. Within minutes, as wind speeds exceeded 60 miles per hour and blowing snow reduced visibility to zero, Paljor became separated from his two teammates in the zero visibility conditions, where even shouting could not be heard above the howling wind that made communication impossible beyond arm's length distance. Navigation became impossible as all visual landmarks disappeared in the blowing snow, while the extreme wind made maintaining balance on the narrow ridge extremely difficult, even for experienced climbers. Paljor discovered a small limestone cave along the main climbing route, a natural shelter that offered protection from the direct wind, but provided no insulation from the extreme cold that continued penetrating his high-altitude gear. Hypothermia began setting in rapidly as his core body temperature dropped below critical levels, causing confusion and severely impairing his ability to make rational decisions about his survival situation. The physiological effects of extreme cold combined with oxygen deprivation created a cascade of symptoms, including loss of fine motor control, impaired judgment, and extreme fatigue that made continued movement impossible. Frostbite attacked his extremities within minutes of exposure to the minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures, while his bright green Koflak mountaineering boots became the identifying feature that would make him recognizable to future climbers. His body's ability to generate heat became overwhelmed by the extreme conditions, while the combination of oxygen deprivation and hypothermia created a medical emergency that could not be treated at that altitude. Death occurred from the combined effects of hypothermia, exhaustion, and oxygen deprivation, with his body becoming preserved instantly by the sub-zero temperatures that prevent decomposition at extreme altitude. No immediate rescue operations were possible due to the storm conditions and the location deep within the death zone, where helicopter operations remain impossible, and ground rescue attempts would likely result in additional casualties among rescue personnel. Paljor's two teammates also died in separate locations during the same storm system, their bodies discovered days later when weather conditions finally cleared enough to allow search operations. Search efforts were delayed for more than 48 hours due to continued severe weather that made any movement above base camp extremely dangerous for rescue teams. When weather conditions finally cleared, recovery operations were deemed too dangerous due to the technical difficulty of the terrain and the extreme altitude that limits rescue personnel to brief exposure periods. Paljor's body was discovered in the limestone cave, perfectly preserved by the extreme cold and positioned in a way that made him visible to all climbers using the Northeast Ridge route. His bright green mountaineering boots became an unmistakable landmark that climbers would reference for navigation and progress assessment during their own summit attempts. For over 20 years, green boots became an unofficial waypoint and landmark for climbers attempting Everest via the Northeast Ridge, with his location serving as a critical reference point for navigation and oxygen supply management. Climbers would use his position to gauge their progress toward the summit and assess their remaining oxygen supplies, while his presence served as a stark reminder of the mountain's deadly nature and the consequences of poor decision-making in extreme environments. In 2014, reports indicated the body was no longer visible in its usual location, leading to speculation that it had been moved or buried more respectfully. However, in 2017, climbers reported that green boots was visible again in the same spot, but with more rocks surrounding the body, suggesting efforts to show respect while leaving the landmark in place. It was October 2nd, 1979, and the south col of Mount Everest sat at 26,200 feet like a wind-scoured moonscape, where even the strongest climbers struggle to survive more than a few hours without shelter from the constant wind that strips heat from the human body faster than it can be generated. The rocky plateau served as the final camp before summit attempts. Hannelore Schmatz was 39, born in Germany in 1940, an experienced mountaineer with successful ascents of Manaslu and other major peaks that had established her reputation as a skilled high-altitude climber capable of handling extreme conditions. Married to expedition leader Gerhard Schmatz, himself a highly accomplished climber with extensive Himalayan experience, she had developed her mountaineering skills through years of challenging alpine ascents and international expeditions. Known throughout the climbing community for her determination and technical climbing ability, she had proven herself capable of handling difficult terrain and extreme weather conditions on multiple occasions. Her ambitious goal carried historical weight: to join the exclusive group of women who had summited Mount Everest and become the first German woman to achieve this feat, representing both personal achievement and national pride. Her mountaineering resume included extensive alpine experience and several successful high-altitude climbs, but her experience above 8,000 meters remained limited to previous expeditions that had not fully prepared her for Everest's unique physiological and psychological challenges. The South Col terrain consists of an exposed, wind-swept saddle between Mount Everest and Lhotse at 26,200 feet elevation, where constant wind exposure makes survival impossible for extended periods without adequate shelter and continuous heat generation. Weather conditions on October 2nd included a multi-day blizzard system with sustained winds exceeding 50 miles per hour and gusts reaching dangerous levels that could knock climbers off their feet or blow them off exposed ridges. Temperatures had dropped to minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit, with severe wind chill factors that increased frostbite risk exponentially, while visibility approached zero in the blowing snow that made navigation extremely difficult, even for experienced climbers familiar with the route. The death zone altitude of 26,200 feet meant oxygen levels remained at only 33% of sea level values, causing rapid physical and mental deterioration that impairs judgment and reduces physical capabilities within hours of exposure. The combination of extreme cold and wind exposure creates conditions where heat loss exceeds the human body's ability to generate warmth, making survival impossible without immediate shelter and descent to lower altitude. Gerhard Schmatz's advanced team had successfully summited on October 1st and issued radio warnings about rapidly deteriorating weather conditions that threatened all climbers on the upper mountain. Weather forecasts from expedition meteorologists predicted worsening storm conditions with increasing wind speeds and dropping temperatures that would make summit attempts extremely dangerous for several days. Multiple radio communications from the successful summit team emphasized the severity of the approaching weather system and recommended postponing any additional summit attempts until conditions improved significantly. Despite these clear warnings from experienced team members who had just experienced the conditions firsthand, Hannelore's team made the decision to delay their attempt by only one day rather than waiting for the storm system to pass completely. Clear signs of dangerous conditions were visible throughout the morning of October 2nd, including rapidly increasing wind speeds, dropping visibility due to blowing snow, and temperatures falling well below the already extreme baseline readings. The storm system showed no signs of weakening, while weather reports continued predicting deteriorating conditions that would make descent increasingly dangerous with each passing hour. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to uncover more untold stories from the world's most unforgiving environments. Hannelore's team reached the summit between 1 o'clock and 1:30 p.m. on October the 2nd. Despite heavy snowfall and deteriorating visibility that should have prompted an immediate retreat to lower altitude, Ray Janae, her climbing partner, began experiencing critical oxygen supply problems during the descent, with his supplemental oxygen system running dangerously low due to the extended time required to reach the summit in poor conditions. Rather than attempting a dangerous night descent in the storm conditions with limited oxygen supplies, both climbers made the decision to bivouac at 28,000 feet, spending the night exposed to extreme wind and cold in the death zone where survival for extended periods approaches impossibility. The bivouac site offered minimal protection from the howling wind and sub-zero temperatures, while their high-altitude gear provided insufficient insulation for overnight survival at that elevation. Janet died during the night from hypothermia and oxygen deprivation, his body unable to generate sufficient heat to survive the extreme conditions without adequate shelter. Hannelore and Sherpa Sundar began their descent at dawn, but the night of exposure had severely weakened both climbers and compromised their ability to navigate the technical terrain safely. Hannelore collapsed from a combination of exhaustion, hypothermia, and severe altitude sickness approximately 330 feet above Camp 4, her body no longer capable of generating the energy required for continued movement in the extreme conditions. Unable to continue under her own power and lacking the strength to assist in her own evacuation, she sat against her backpack in a position that would become her final resting place. Death occurred from exposure to extreme cold and oxygen deprivation, with her body's systems shutting down after prolonged exposure to conditions that exceed human survival capabilities. A rescue team was dispatched with supplemental oxygen and medical supplies, but the extreme altitude and weather conditions limited their ability to provide effective assistance. The rescue team reached the South Pole, but discovered that Hannelore had already died from exposure, while Sundar was rescued in critical condition with severe frostbite that would result in the loss of most of his fingers and toes. Hannelore's body remained in a seated position against her backpack for approximately 5 years, perfectly preserved by the extreme cold and visible to all climbers using the South Pole route to attempt Everest's summit. Climbers described her presence as a sinister guard watching over the mountain, with her eyes remaining open and her hair constantly whipped by the relentless wind that never stops at that elevation. Her position became a landmark and waypoint for future expeditions, serving as both a navigation reference and a stark reminder of the mountain's deadly nature. In 1984, her body was finally lost to the constant winds, sliding down the mountain's Kangshung face after years of exposure to the extreme weather conditions that eventually overcame even the preserving effects of the extreme cold. She became the first woman to die on Mount Everest, and her story highlighted the extreme risks associated with high-altitude climbing without proper weather windows and adequate safety margins for unexpected conditions. It was May 22nd, 1998, and the second step on Everest's northeast ridge loomed at 28,300 feet, where the mountain's final technical defenses test every climber's will to live through a 40-foot vertical rock wall that must be climbed while wearing bulky high-altitude gear and breathing supplemental oxygen. Fixed ropes and ladders mark the technical climbing section. Francys Arsentiev was 40, born January 18, 1958, in Honolulu, Hawaii, and educated at Stevens College and the University of Louisville before working as an accountant in Telluride, Colorado, where the high-altitude environment had partially prepared her for extreme elevation climbing. Married to Sergei Arsentiev, a Russian climber known throughout the mountaineering community as the Snow Leopard for his exceptional high-altitude climbing abilities and technical expertise on the world's most challenging peaks. Together, they had conquered numerous peaks across North America and Russia, building a reputation as a formidable climbing partnership capable of handling extreme conditions and technical terrain that challenged even experienced mountaineers. Her ambitious goal was to become the first American woman to summit Mount Everest without supplemental oxygen, an achievement that would place her among the elite climbers capable of surviving in the death zone using only the limited oxygen available at extreme altitude. Her mountaineering experience included extensive high-altitude climbing throughout North America and international expeditions, but attempting Everest without supplemental oxygen represented the most dangerous approach possible, dramatically increasing the risk of hypoxia, hypothermia, and death in the death zone environment. The Northeast Ridge terrain presents technical rock climbing challenges at extreme altitude, particularly near the second step where climbers must navigate a vertical rock wall using fixed ropes while managing the effects of severe oxygen deprivation. Weather conditions on May 22nd had started with clear skies optimal for summit attempts, but rapidly deteriorating conditions developed during the afternoon, with increasing wind speeds and dropping temperatures that created dangerous descent conditions. Temperatures ranged from minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit during the day to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, with severe wind chill factors that increased frostbite risk exponentially for any exposed skin or inadequately protected extremities. At altitudes exceeding 28,000 feet, oxygen levels dropped to approximately 25% of sea level values, creating severe hypoxia that causes confusion, weakness, and the inability to make rational decisions about survival situations. The death zone effects become dramatically more severe without supplemental oxygen, as physical deterioration accelerates exponentially and the margin for error approaches zero for any mistakes in navigation, timing, or energy management. Multiple warning signs indicated dangerous conditions developing throughout the day, including Francys and Sergei's late summit time that placed them on the peak during the afternoon, rather than the preferred early morning hours that allow maximum time for safe descent. Weather conditions began deteriorating during their descent, with increasing wind speeds and dropping temperatures that made the technical climbing sections increasingly dangerous for climbers already weakened by the extreme altitude. Francys began showing clear signs of severe exhaustion and altitude sickness during the descent, including confusion, loss of coordination, and extreme fatigue that indicated her body was failing to cope with the oxygen-deprived environment. The couple became separated during the descent in deteriorating visibility conditions, with communication becoming impossible due to the increasing wind and the disorienting effects of severe hypoxia on cognitive function. Clear indicators of hypoxia included Francys's increasing confusion, inability to coordinate her movements on technical terrain, and extreme fatigue that made continued progress increasingly difficult with each step of the descent. Her decision to climb without supplemental oxygen had left her with no safety margin for the unexpected delays and weather deterioration that commonly occur on Everest expeditions. Francys successfully reached Everest's summit, but became critically weakened during the descent. Her body's energy reserves depleted by the extreme physical demands of climbing at altitude without supplemental oxygen. She became separated from Sergei in the deteriorating weather conditions, losing the navigation assistance and physical support that had been crucial for her summit success. Other climbing teams discovered her near the second step, conscious but completely unable to move under her own power due to severe hypoxia, hypothermia, and complete physical exhaustion. The rescue teams provided supplemental oxygen and attempted warming techniques, but Francys was too weakened to assist in her own evacuation or continue the descent that required technical climbing skills and significant physical strength. Her condition had deteriorated beyond the point where field treatment could provide meaningful improvement, as the combination of oxygen deprivation and extreme cold had created multiple organ system failures that could not be reversed at that altitude. The rescue team was ultimately forced to abandon her to save their own lives, as remaining longer would have resulted in additional deaths without improving her chances of survival. Sergei attempted a heroic rescue mission, returning uphill with supplemental oxygen and medical supplies despite his own severe exhaustion and the extreme danger of ascending back into the death zone. His rescue attempt demonstrated extraordinary courage and dedication, but the extreme conditions and Francys's critical condition made successful evacuation impossible with the resources available at that altitude. Sergei was found dead the following day, having fallen during his rescue attempt while weakened by exhaustion and the effects of prolonged exposure to extreme altitude. Multiple climbing teams encountered Francys during their own summit attempts, but rescue operations proved impossible due to the death zone conditions and her complete inability to assist in her own evacuation. The technical terrain and extreme altitude limited rescue options to scenarios where the victim could provide significant assistance in their own evacuation, which Francys was unable to do due to her critical condition. Francys's body remained visible for 9 years in a peaceful sleeping position near the main climbing route, perfectly preserved by the extreme cold and positioned in a way that appeared serene despite the tragic circumstances of her death. She became known throughout the mountaineering community as the Sleeping Beauty of Everest, due to her peaceful appearance and the location of her body along the heavily traveled Northeast Ridge route. In 2007, climber Ian Woodall organized a respectful removal operation, covering her body with an American flag and moving her to a less visible location, where she would not serve as a constant reminder to future climbers of the mountain's deadly nature. Her story sparked worldwide debate about climbing ethics and the moral obligation of climbers to assist fellow mountaineers in distress, while highlighting the practical limitations of rescue operations in the death zone environment. Francys became a symbol of both human ambition and the moral complexities of extreme mountaineering, where the desire to help others must be balanced against the realistic assessment of what can be accomplished without creating additional casualties among would-be rescuers. Thanks for watching. If you liked these stories, click here.